For those of you that have been here before, you already know, but for anybody new here, this is the Growth Clinic. This is a community building event that we do basically in hopes to add value. We're doing a lot of really awesome things over here. We work with dozens of different clients in different industries. We're on to some of the latest and greatest techniques and tactics. We just simply want to share those things with you. We also like for this to be collaborative. So we encourage and enjoy when you guys you can drop comments in the chat at any time. You could raise a hand or do whatever it is that you can do with the Zoom controls, and we will do our best to answer any questions that you have. I'm super excited today to be joined by a very special guest. This is a guy who, in a previous lifetime, he was a naval intelligence officer.
So enlisted. I want to make sure it's clear. I don't want anybody saluting me. I was an enlisted guy.
But long story short, turned comedian
for 10 years.
Turned designer, creative director. This is a guy who has worked at, agencies large and small for decades, pretty much, with a strong background in brand and a strong background in performance. He's our creative director here at WebMechanix. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Bart Heird.
What's going on, everybody? Yeah, just to illuminate a little bit of what Chris said. And thank you for the clap, Jennifer. That was cool. The applause. I started my career as a Navy intel guy way back in the day. And then when that was done, I was a comic in Chicago for a long time. Was part of a three-man troupe, and when they broke up, I had to eat. So I fell back on the one thing I knew, which was drawing, and I ended up freelancing for a little agency called J. Walter Thompson. I freelanced there for about a year, and then I ended up getting hired, and I was there for almost 10 years. So I was at JWT for 10 years in Chicago. From there, I went to Carlson Marketing, which turned into AMIA, which is a loyalty agency in Minneapolis, and ended up running the UI product team out of London, which was a very bizarre turn of events, but it was really exciting because I got to put my hand on product. From there, then I left and went to Merkle, which you may know here in Maryland. And then from Merkle, I landed at WebMechanix and been for the past 4 years building the creative department and having a blast with all my creative team. So
it was not easy to recruit him. We had to headhunt him away from Merkle, who's a publicly traded company right up the street from us, no doubt. All right, we got some new folks here coming. All right, cool. So Bart here is our group creative director. He's amazing in terms of like the idea of blending sort of brand, like what you want to put out there as the perception of your company, with performance. An absolute master. Today, we're going to talk about ads that work. I'm Chris. I'm one of the co-founders here. I'm playing the MC. Normally it's Jared, so forgive me if I'm a little bit clunky. I tend to go off script, Bart. I'm not like the best at following scripts,
totally
but we will certainly touch on many of the questions.
10 years of improv. I'm right there with you. So
yeah, right. There is for the newcomers, if you have questions as we go, please do chat. Drop whatever questions you have in the chat. We'll do our best to respond on time. So today we're talking ads. I've seen many campaigns over the years. I've been doing this probably for 12 to 13 years. Many campaigns, and there's two different types of advertisers. There's the ones that know every little nook and cranny of the platforms. They know every setting, every dial that you can turn, every little thing that you can do that's geeky. And then there's the ones that almost ignore all those things and just make amazing ads that just like literally bully your competitors out of the auction because they're so good. So today we want to talk about ads because I think that's the number one thing. Like you can produce a 10, 20, 30% lift with some of the nooks and crannies. But Bart, my first question for you, why are ads so important? Like
so ads are important,
starting from the top,
especially in this era of digital engagement, because for years, for hundreds of years, we've been, marketers and advertisers have been trying to sell things, and we have seen that accelerated so fast in the digital environment that it's almost impossible to keep up with it volumetrically. So in an age where you used to drive down the highway and see a billboard. That's kind of where we're at now. We've got about that much time to get people's attention. So we have to get it quick and we have to be to the point. Conceptually, brand advertising, as we all know, is about making people feel things, whereas marketing is to make people do things. We have the unique challenge, I think, in the digital community to try to get people to do things, but get them to feel things in a very short time. So brand is still important in that sense, but our time from engagement to click is really quick. It's not a 30-second TV ad. It's not, a half-hour show or like a direct marketing piece that gets their attention. We, especially in the social community, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, Chris.
Yeah.
We talk about the different platforms. In the different platforms, you have a different mentality about engaging your audience. So I know Chris started this out with, I think his post was the lazy marketer. We all kind of laughed when we saw it because there's a lot of hard work that goes into this. But to get there, you have to understand three things. And I think understanding about your ad is the most important thing. And it's understanding your audience, understanding the data, and then understanding the trends. So your community, whoever you work for, whatever it is you're selling, you need to get people's attention. And that's why ads are important. I also talk really fast.
For us,
I'm not subtitled, so I'm going to try to slow down. And if I don't talk slow enough, please interrupt me. It's totally fine.
But you bring up a good point, because ads are not ads. Like the different platforms are dramatically different. So really quick chat survey, just to make this as useful as possible for everybody here. What ad platforms are you most interested in? Like, just drop it in the chat. Are you interested in Google? Are you interested in Facebook? Are you interested in YouTube? Like, what are the platforms where you would most likely be running your ads? Would it be LinkedIn? I see Jim is on Google Ads. That's good. Leslie, Michael, Jennifer, Caroline, if you guys want to drop the platforms of most interest, we'll see if there's any. Okay, looks like a lot of Google Ads, a lot of Facebook. So it's basically the usual suspects. So let's talk a little bit. So, well, real quick, before we get platform specific, you mentioned a few things, Bart, a few elements of good ads, like be quick, be to the point. What are some other just like tried and true things that make for an effective ad, regardless of platform?
So regardless of platform, I think the number one thing that any ad, any piece of content should do is to understand the problem that the audience has and to be able to convey that you're their solution, right? A list of features is great. I know a lot of times internally companies, you're representing a lot of different voices. You want to get all that data out there. But at the other end of that ad is a customer who has an issue. And if you can't identify their issue, for one, they're not going to pay attention to you. So it's relevance to their issue. And then if you don't answer that problem quickly, they're going to quickly lose interest in what you're saying. So tried and true, you want to be really pointed about solving their problem and understanding what their problem is. Also, we have noticed that, well, you said not platform. I guess the context of that ad, whether it be a visual, a piece of copy, that context has to be relevant to their issue. So it's always looking for relevance, right?
Yep. Got it. So let's now get platform specific in a very quick, just, visual review of things. It looks like Google Ads is probably the number one of highest interest. Facebook and Insta are probably number two. And then it looks like a little bit of interest for YouTube, TikTok, and one person said LinkedIn.
I saw Pinterest.
So let's talk a little bit about ads for Google Ads. And I imagine that you guys are talking Google search when you say Google Ads, or is it more display? You could let me know. But when you think about Google ads, like let's just think about Google search ads. And we know that like responsive search, so just a general trend that's happening with Google search, Google loves to be like, hey, advertisers, let Google do it for you. It's like, need audiences, like we have them built for you. Like need similar to customers, we have that. Like need a bid, you need an automated bidding strategy. Like let's just let Google do that. I historically have been skeptical about Google. Like I've been, because they're obviously a publicly traded company. They're in the business of making money. So it's like, just let us do it. However, there are some guardrails you can put in place, and this is for a different topic. But we know that on Google Ads, they're really pushing responsive search ads. And that's when you load up like 12 different headlines, 4 different description texts, and basically allow Google to display, the most relevant ads. But Bart, when you think, or yeah, to display the most relevant ads based on like all of these selections.
Area, right.
Expanded text ads are still available, I think, until June of next year, but they're going to be sunset. So Bart, I know you probably do more so in the way of like visually designed ads, but what is your take on Google ads? Like if you
So imagine you're designing an ad that has to fit in a postage stamp, right? So that's first and foremost.
in a what? I'm
In a
sorry.
postage stamp. So they're going to be very small and very quick. So there's not a lot of time to engage. The upside of that ad is that they have searched for something that puts the ad in their mindset. So they're already ready for that. When we're doing a Google ad, you want to make sure that you have a visual that makes sense. And you also don't want to use a complex visual. Anything that looks beautiful at 300 by 300 is going to look terrible in that small format. So you really want to find something that's simple, but that still illustrates your point. Secondly, if you have a long product title, if you have a long company name, all of those things work against you when you're trying to get the customer's attention. So that is a perfect opportunity to go in with a short, pithy, useful headline, and that short headline then works inside the Google ad.
Yep. And I can tell you when I'm looking, so it sounds like you might have been touching a little bit on Google display. When I'm thinking Google search, if the click-through rate is less than 5%, I'm underwhelmed. Like I want at least a 5% click-through rate. And if it's lower than that, chances are that it can and should be improved. Click-through rate is super duper important when it comes to Google ads, because the higher your click-through rate, the more relevant Google considers it, and they'll reward you with cheaper clicks or more clicks or better position for lower costs. When I'm sitting down to write a Google ad, well, it's the age of responsive search ads, and that's the format where you load up like 12 different headlines and basically say, hey Google, you serve the right one. When I'm running responsive search ads, what I like to do, I always think in terms of buying data, right? So when I first start a Google Ads campaign, I'm basically just going to bid on the keyword. I'm going to intentionally spend money and not really expect much in the way of return, because I want the search query data. Like I want to see there's a difference between the keywords that you're bidding on and the search queries that people are actually using. So there's a search query. I think they call it search terms in the platform, but you want to get a sense of what those search terms are. And then when you go to write your 12 headlines, write basically 1 or 2 headlines for each of the terms that are searched most often. So that, like, say you're selling tennis shoes, right? And you bid on tennis shoes, you're going to get the query data back, and you're going to see Nike tennis shoes comprises 20% of the queries, Adidas comprises 20% of the queries, and like high tops comprises another 20. So like you want to definitely write ads to cater, or write headlines especially to cater to those queries, because the headline of your Google ad, which is the part that's usually highlighted in blue or green, is going to be the biggest pull. So to summarize, look at search query data or buy some search query data before even really trying that hard to create an amazing ad. Use that search query data in the headlines. And if it's less than 5% click-through rate, like keep trying, keep doing different things, keep trying different things.
Yeah, and that gets directly back to what I was saying, first with understanding your audience and understanding data. When you get the search queries from them, you may have hypothesized that they'd be searching on one thing, but the audience is going to tell you that they're doing something else. So it's really important that you pay attention to that data.
Yep. Now, on Google ads, on Google display ads, I find, and Bart, you can tell me your perspective on this, but I think that everything you said about display ads like is totally relevant. Like, get the point across quickly, make it clear and not confusing, optimize for small screens, I think are totally relevant. On Google Display, well, Google Display can be tricky. You have to look at the placements to see sites where your ad's actually running, because a lot of times it'll just be running on junky sites. One way to avoid that I've seen is if you change your bid strategy to bidding on viewable CPM. So by default, it'll be a cost per click bid strategy, which is, I think, just kind of opens it up for scammy sites or just like silly sites. But when you're looking at a display campaign, you can see basically, I think it used to be called placements, but now I think it's called like where your ad showed or something like that. But you want to make sure that you're seeing what those placements are. And if they're junky, try switching to a bid on viewable CPM as opposed to the cost per click bid. That's by default. But I've seen, Bart, a lot of times that building the ads with the built-in display ad builder can yield beneficial results. What are your thoughts?
I'd say sometimes. I know that as a tool, it sometimes can be a little clunky. I think your point to the context of where it runs is really important. I ran a campaign for a major insurance company, and we were doing Facebook ads, but it still plays. And we noticed that our ads were dying, and it turned out because they had blue in them, and the blue matched Facebook's blue. Sometimes if an ad doesn't look like an ad or looks too much like an ad on a site, it can get lost. And we know, for those of you who don't know, there's a thing called ad blindness to people who browse, and they just start to discount anything in the right sidebar or in the header. They learn not to see it. So one of the big tactics, this goes back, Chris, to everything, is to be disruptive. So we understand disruption, whether it is the type of ad they're seeing or the type of color palette that they're looking at, whatever it is. Sometimes you need to be very disruptive, and understanding where that ad's running helps you to get around that. So from a visual standpoint, that's important. I think language too, sometimes there's provocative or shocking or interruptive language. And I don't mean cursing or something inappropriate, but sometimes there's language that you can use to really pull people in. And that's the kind of thing that you want to do, especially for these ads.
Yeah, like breaking the state, or what do they call it? A frame break or a state break or a pattern interrupt.
Pattern interruption, yeah, or disruption, yeah.
Yep.
Because they're so used to hearing a thing, they're so used to seeing a thing, especially on a specific site. If you can get around that, then you'll have a better chance of getting their attention.
Yep. So we got a chat from Leslie. Will we be showing examples of good and bad ads? The short answer to that is yes, but mostly of good ads.
I hope we don't show any bad ads. I don't want. There's plenty of those. All you have to do is search the web, Leslie. Just go to the web. There's plenty of ad ads. And the interesting part about this job too, as creative director, is I've said this for years, and it's been universally accepted amongst departments where I work. it's hard for people to tell you what a really good ad is, but they usually respond to it. But almost anybody can tell you what a bad ad is, right? Like when you see a bad ad, you're like, oh God, why did they pay for that? Oh my Lord, why did they run that? Bad ads are in plenty. So, but we will show you some examples of work we've done and then talk about how that's worked.
Yep. So biggest mistakes, Bart, when going about that ad creative process, what are the biggest hiccups, the biggest hurdles, the biggest mistakes that are most common that you see advertisers making?
That's a really good question, Chris. The one of the biggest mistakes is to not listen to the data, right? Like we know what our brand is, we know what our customer wants. We've done this a million years. We're just going to run this ad until it breaks through. Not listening to that data will kill you. You have to be nimble. You have to be able to pivot, especially in a digital age of ad production. You see it a lot more. It's interesting to me that I see television ads now that pick up digital trends because they understand that's the way people are engaging with media. So I think number one is not following the data. Number two is the definition of insanity, right? Trying something over and over again and expecting a different result. So I think you have to go at it. And we've seen this with our clients. We will try something and it will have a little success. We'll try it again, it'll have more success, and then suddenly it falls off. Instead of blaming the platform or blaming things, we then go and recreate an ad that is in a different, we create an ad that is a different ad to test it. And if it passes the test, then we keep pushing that. So we're constantly evolving. So I think one of the things is to don't get into the pattern of not evolving your ads. You have to constantly be looking at what you're doing, measuring it, and then making sure that it answers. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is just this obstinance that brand carries the day. Sometimes a brand is hard for people to understand. And when you push a piece of branded content into a lower funnel and a client or a customer has no idea what that client wants out of them, it's gonna be bumpy. I think understanding where you are in the funnel is really imperative. And those who don't understand where they are in the marketing funnel get really confused and upset because like, well, this should work. It's worked in other mediums. So I think that's my third.
Well, that's a good segue actually, because I told you I'm not good at following scripts, but we started talking platforms. Most people said Google Ads. We talked about Google Ads, but we didn't talk about anything else platform specific. But I think what you just said in terms of knowing where you are in the funnel is 110% applicable to Facebook, Insta, really anything social. Because when you're buying search ads, especially when they're like bidding on keywords versus YouTube, like because Google owns the search, like when the Google search, then they also own YouTube, and you could also run display ads on third-party sites. But when you're buying search ads, that's the bottom of the funnel. Like that's people going to Google, I'm ready to buy this thing, give it to me. So there's no funnel-based strategy really. I mean, there could be, but usually when we're looking at Google search, we're just capturing that bottom of the funnel demand. Let's talk a little bit about Facebook ads, Facebook and Insta. I know you do a ton of those with your team.
Yes, we do.
So just talk to me, man. Just,
So
the
exciting.
approach. Yeah.
I was here at the start of it, right? So I remember I'm going to totally date myself right now. But I remember the GeoCities platforms. That's how far back I go. And I see a few faces laughing. If you're not laughing, it means you avoided something. But when Facebook first came out, it was an interesting platform because nobody knew really how to use it. I have been through Facebook feed, Facebook mobile, Facebook canvas ads. So every iteration. But the thing that has remained true is that you are always fighting the content of other users. So whatever you put up there, you're 1/3 of those ads are going to be ads. And then the other 2/3 are going to be, look at my baby. Isn't my puppy funny? We just went on vacation. you're constantly competing with that. So it's a very unique place to advertise because you really are trying hard to get people's attention. So pattern interruption is imperative there. Secondly, bottom of the funnel ads can work, but a lot of Facebook is mid funnel. You're really making that bridge between maybe you know who we are, but now I'm going to tell you what we can do and we want you to take an action. Facebook also is unique in they are the ones when I talk about, you know, an ad platform that chews through your ads, they can, anything that would have lasted in market in direct mail for a year or in television for a quarter, lasts in Facebook for about a week. And you've got a very short window to be able to deliver something. So we have to create a number of ads to feed that platform so that we keep it fresh. Because again, the minute you're not paying attention to the data and it falls off and you don't have something to go in to replace that, then you fall behind. And that's where I think a lot of people make a mistake on Facebook. Instagram, on the flip side, when it originally started, they pushed very hard. No, if you're going to advertise on Instagram, here's our push. Our push is it has to look like something that's going to be taken by our users. It has to be beautiful photography. It has to be, well, once it got bought by Facebook, it became another avenue for Facebook advertising. But Instagram is interesting because video and the stories placements work on Facebook as well, but stories are now in this weird competitive space with TikTok and garnering people's attention. So finding a way to do that style of ad is really important. And I rambled a little there. Sorry, Chris. Did that answer what you were looking for?
It does, yeah. It did answer what I'm looking for. I want to go a little bit just like geeky, which is related to ads, but not exactly ads. One thing that's important on Facebook is audience management. So I just posted on LinkedIn saying, hey, the lazy advertiser's guide to winning, like forget about audiences, forget about targeting. It's all about the ad. That's not totally true. The truth is that audience management is important. Most people are not on Facebook or Insta to buy stuff, so it is an interruption style of an ad. So the very first thing is stopping power. So we use that term here internally. It's like, oh, this ad's pretty good. This one's got stopping power. Like you need that stopping power. You need that pattern interrupt badly in terms of a Facebook ad. Also on Facebook ads, consider it a multi-click purchase. So unless whatever you're selling is like really low priced, like, you know, 50, like less than $50, there's probably some consideration phase that's going to be longer than it is on paid search. So that's why it's important to have your audiences basically organized in such a way where you can actually progress people through a funnel. So it's like your campaign A is going to be your very top of funnel, you know, just like your sort of broadest and most highest stopping power ads. Anybody that interacts with that ad, watches that video, does whatever thing that you determine, should be enrolled as the audience in campaign B. And in campaign B, you'll have a different set of ads that you know, are a little bit more geared towards somebody with purchase intent. And then depending on basically the higher the selling price of whatever your offer is, probably the more work you're going to need to do. And that's why the funnel vision, like the funnel vision, is important. In general, remarketing ads are the most profitable, but they're only profitable if you have a continual flow of net new people being pulled in and enrolled into the funnel.
Hey, Chris, can I get you to show the off-air ads now? Because that's
sure.
Your setup is perfect. I was like, who needs a script? Chris and I are just talking. We don't need a script. The off-air ads are a great example of that. And I'll tell you a little bit about this brand. This is a very unique, exclusive brand that competes with Tiffany's. It is not a $50 pair of earrings. They are very expensive. And when we first engaged with Aver, it was, well, does everybody know who you are? So our first ads, which unfortunately I don't think are on this particular piece, but our first ads showed some of this gorgeous photography that they had used. paired with, and there you go. So these gorgeous models paired with their earrings. And we wanted to create a sense of that this is expensive and it's worth paying for. So the idea was, let's show these gorgeous photos and we'll put them in concert with, for instance, this model was used with the photo of Cleopatra, and they were wearing the same necklace. We had a queen that looked like from the Netflix royal show, right? And she was wearing similar earrings and necklace. So the idea was agelessness. This is important, that when you buy a piece of gold, you can carry it through to your family and it can be passed down through generations. That was the way we introduced the product. As we continued to move forward through the funnel, we found that people knew who Heird was, so they make a bold impact. We use these testimonial ads. It started to draw people in. Looks that slay. It was a little cheekier, but that was for the holidays. And ultimately, we did see performance with the individual pieces that we showed, but we had to walk people through that. If we had started just like no offense to Jared as a jeweler, but if we just started with those, here's a suite of products and here's the price, it probably would have failed. So we took our time in nurturing that audience to show them the value, show them the testimonials, and then start to bring them in with more disruptive ads to lead them into that. So I'm really proud of this campaign. We won some awards for this campaign. We've done really well for the client, and it's gorgeous jewelry. So go buy some over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is a good example of enrolling folks into a funnel, getting them to do something that's not a direct purchase, and then consider it as a value metric, right? So most times advertisers, like on Google, you'll mostly be thinking about impressions and clicks and useful visits and conversions and sell through to sales. In the world of social and Facebook, Insta, TikTok, Pinterest, these different things, you should consider the size of your warm audience a valuable asset. So like that's something that I would watch and I would report on, is like how many people over the last 30 days have had some meaningful engagement with our ads, with our pages, with any types of assets that we've got. Other very quick things on Facebook ads. So with Facebook ads, you've got your image generally. You've got your description. The description is like the area where you can put a lot of text. Then you've got your headline. So it's really important. The headline is probably the thing that's most test worthy, but the description element is the part that's most interesting to me personally. And the reason that is because a lot of times, especially if you're in a business which is complex, if there's a lot that goes into your product, if it's an information heavy sale, like if you have to meet with prospects multiple times and give them a lot of information before they actually buy, you can actually do a lot of useful damage with that description text. And I love writing long form. Like I like to take basically the best image and the best headline that you can come up with, and then test it with short form, like a short form description text versus longer form, where in that longer form description, you're essentially selling. Like just imagine that you're on a call with that prospect. Whatever you would say to them in real life, you would, position yourself against the alternatives. You would assuage objections. You would, assure certain outcomes, etc. But if you do that in the description text, it's a little bit magical, because when somebody clicks the see more button and spends time with that text, like if you can get somebody to actually read that, then that's a really powerful signal for Facebook's algo that like, wow, that's a relevant ad. And just like high click-through rates are rewarded on Google search, high dwell time is heavily rewarded on Facebook ads and others.
Yeah, Chris, we see that with video too, right? Like we've started purchasing video ads over the last 3 to 4 years, and you actually see that play out. You can do a static ad or an animated ad that you normally would have run, and then run a video ad of a similar, literally almost 1-to-1, and the video ad will almost always win out because of that dwell time.
And one thing that we're currently testing and experimenting with in terms, so we talked about audience size and recency as an asset. So here's how many people we've engaged with over 180 days. Here's over 90 days. Here's over the last 30 days, over the last 15 days. So audience size and recency is an asset. One thing that we're testing for ourselves right now on LinkedIn is long form video. So on LinkedIn, you can run, typically we would run like, you know, a 5 to 50-second video, something like that on Facebook or TikTok. But we're testing, and this still preliminary on LinkedIn, long form video, because in our world, it is like a complex sale. It's a high ticket sale. There's a lot of information that our prospects need or want before making a decision on hiring an agency. So we're testing basically 30-minute long videos, not with the goal of converting. In fact, intentionally, as part of the test, we're trying to keep, the hypothesis is that if we keep users on the platform, and I know Bart hates that word users, but if we keep people on the LinkedIn platform, they will reward us with very cheap engagement. And we're seeing it. We've only spent like $500 so far, but LinkedIn is historically expensive. It's super expensive compared to the other platforms. And the traffic is high quality. So on average, like if we're running normal video or image ads on LinkedIn, we're going to see a cost per click of like 10 to 15 bucks, maybe even 20 bucks or 25 bucks even, depending on how specific the audience is. We're running a 30-minute video right now to a very specific audience, and we're getting 50% video views, which means, you know, people watch basically 15 minutes for $4 a pop. So a click costs us 10 bucks on the low end. And most clicks are, you know, people are going to look at your landing page, scroll up and down for 2 seconds, and then leave most of the time. And that costs $10. But we're now getting $4 15-minute views of a video. Right? And then and I believe that the reason that it's working is because, of course, LinkedIn wants people to stay on that platform. Facebook wants people to stay on the platform. So one little test that I would suggest for you guys in basically building audience, like take a really informative, really useful video that doesn't really try to sell you, doesn't really include like a link to an offer or anything, and just run it as your continual audience building strategy. So like say you have $1,000 a day or $10,000 a day, whatever that you want to spend, take probably most of it, probably at least half or more of it, to have that ever-present video running where you're just like cultivating audience, and then use the other portion, say 30% or so, to retarget and capture that demand.
And I'm just answering Leslie's question about, do we shoot it in-house? Typically we don't, because, you know, there's just an expense associated with video that a lot of our clients don't want to engage in. And a lot of them have existing videos. So what we've done is find a way to take their existing video and edit it into a piece that works for whatever that venue is. And LinkedIn's funny. It's a really interesting platform, because years ago when I was at AMIA, I had a president there call it grown-up Facebook. And then I've also heard it called business Facebook. But there is something to the fact that it's much more business centered, and for B2B brands, it's almost a must, right? You know, LinkedIn is one of those platforms that really is important for a business to business selling, that you want to use that platform. So
now I want to show you guys one other ad. This is kind of the new school style of ads that's really working. I know, Jim, you've seen this already. We do shoot these types of ads in-house because they're intentionally low fidelity. Like they're not heavily produced. they're what we call UGC, or user generated content, or influencer style ads, usually filmed with a cell phone. But on TikTok especially, these are the types of ads that are working. The more traditional style of ads, like, they could work on TikTok, they may or may not work on TikTok, but this style is just.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris. I was going to say, just a sidebar while Chris is loading that up, this gets to understanding trend, right? Again, you might want to run something a certain way or shoot something a certain way, but we can't escape the power of the influencer, right? We've seen it. The audiences are engaging with their phones every day. And because of that, they're going on TikTok and Facebook stories and Instagram stories, and they're seeing these influencers. So that becomes a very powerful style of ads. So we're following that trend to see where it takes us.
Yeah, so I'm going to attempt to share here. Sorry, my audio sucks for this moment because I had to unplug, but just let me make sure that you guys are able to hear it so you can see it.
What's a crazy hack you found?
Could you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. So watch this, and then I'll tell you the elements that make it work.
That has saved you money. Okay, check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car. Okay. All right, you guys ready? Car insurance, $118. That's what I was paying. Yes, I picked up the car a few months ago, and watch this. Ready? $97 premium. My fees were $20. Okay, $118. I cover up my private information, guys. $39, $118, $500 for comprehensive, $500 for collision, $500 comprehensive, $500 for collision. Okay, you see, they're the exact same model. Hyundai Ioniq. It's the same policy. $118 to $39. As you can see, I have full coverage. I have a premium policy. I love my coverage and I love my insurance company, but I was paying a lot and I didn't even realize it. Scroll down, you go to yours. Take 2 minutes, guys. It's free. Stop overpaying. Fill this out.
So, hold up. How do I get back to my Zoom?
Oh, but now you're seeing behind the scenes, our conversation.
So,
you can stop sharing, I think.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think makes that ad work on TikTok?
I know.
And by the way, so that was not a client. That was one of our recent employees had a lot of success with that ad in a previous life. But just to give you a sense, he was getting leads, which were long form leads, meaning that they filled out like 17 different fields on a form. So it wasn't just name and email. It was 17 different fields, including vehicle identification. So, yeah, urgency, her voice is annoying. Yeah. That's one thing. Anybody else have any hunches of what made that work? Very authentic. That's absolutely right. So authentic, believable, urgency.
Comparison too is really important. Like, she's showing you a comparison there that is on her computer. She's got it, pulled up. Whether it's true or not, she said she hid her own info, and that's a very natural thing for someone to do. And you're like, oh, well, she must be a real person because she hid her own info, right?
Yep, and that's proof, which Meg just mentioned. The language, the way that she was talking, like most companies they would have trouble approving that kind of an ad, But they also, and this part is important, is at the very end, she showed the scent trail. And I'll put my audio back on so I don't sound so bad. But she showed the scent trail, which refers to, hold on one second as I reconnect. Okay, there we go. The scent trail as it relates to what's going to happen, what am I going to see after I click on this ad? So that's, in general, like a really strong practice, regardless of platform, is you want to do your best to provide that scent trail to the extent where, like, we'll sometimes have landing pages that say almost the exact same thing as the ad. Because if there's any disconnect,
100%.
there's a human, scent as in smell, right? There's a human tendency, like right off the bat, subconsciously, we think, am I in the right place? Is this right? And if the landing page or whatever card or screen or whatever is shown after the initial ad doesn't look very, very similar, you're going to always have high bounce rates because there's just that subconscious, like, am I in the right place?
Yeah, that was Chris. I was going to say that's one of those things that it does not matter what kind of ad you have. If you lead somebody down a path and they feel they've been baited and switched in any way, they will immediately, first of all, you're going to hurt your company because you lose credibility with your customers. And by the way, I don't hate users. I just find it's funny. I heard this in a UX presentation once. The people who UX designers and drug counselors are the only people that call their customers users. So I always thought that, I didn't mean to make you spit coffee, Leslie, but I always found that very funny. So I don't hate it. It's just, I try to make sure that we're not saying anything to impugn our customers. I had one agency I worked with that had a client that said, these are not customers. These are not users. These are our partners. So you refer to them as partners. So I think it just depends on what you're doing. So sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to sideline there, but
no worries. No worries.
Making sure that you match the page is imperative for all ads.
So the time is flying here. We're about 47 minutes into an hour. I want to be sure that if there are any specific questions that you guys have, drop them in the chat. We'll do our best to answer. Also, since you're part of our community here, if you want to talk to Bart, if you want to do a brain exchange, if you want to talk to me about your specific situation, just let us know. We're happy to help in any way that we can. If you want us to do some ads for you, we could do that too. But does anybody have any specific questions that you want to pose at this time, or should we keep wrapping here?
Because God knows we can.
Oh yeah.
Also, Chris, if nobody has a question, I'd love to show some of the other work and just talk a little bit about that work, because I think they had requested that.
Keep going all day long.
I'd be good with that, Jim. I just don't think the other meetings I have after this would appreciate it.
So yeah, we can definitely show the other work, and it leads into one of the other questions on the script, which was for you, Bart, which you can kind of talk about the work and maybe answer the question at the same time. But if you think back on your most successful ad campaigns of all time in your career, which may or may not be these ones that we're about to show, what were they?
That's okay. I mean, these are great. I love our team. Our team listens. They're smart. They're very, very talented. I've been at holding company agencies, and I would go toe to toe with any team on another holding company agency. So there's the gauntlet thrown. I think my team is very, very talented. So
yeah. So as you're talking us through this work, think also in terms of just like what made them so successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So most successful campaign, and it was a big campaign, lots of money, integrated with other things, but it was U.S. Marine Corps. But it was intimately understanding the message of the Marine Corps, and that was, you're not good enough. And that's a really weird place for an advertiser to be, to tell their audience you're not good enough to be a member. Because what it does is it sorts out people like, oh gosh, maybe I'm not. Or it brings in the recruit that says, yes, I am. And they feel that they meet the challenge. And so everything we did was like, you kind of suck, you're not, you're weak. And it was a fascinating campaign because you would never have expected a campaign like that to work, but it did really well. This, on the other hand, has done well because this is a contact lens company that's in 3 different markets. We have a number of ways, a number of different audiences, but the problem that the customer had was expensive lenses are expensive. You go into an optometrist, you have to sit down, or an ophthalmologist, you have to sit down with them and they have to go through this. But once you have that prescription, you should be able to get it anywhere you want. And so the previous ads, I think, had been a little flat-footed and talked about that, but there was no joy in it and there was no excitement in it. And leaf behind foggy glasses, it's very silly, but it one of the stopping power things. People were like, what? Oh, that's cute. Contact lenses. Let your contacts come to you. That's talking very directly about the promise of this brand. Spring never looked more beautiful, using the metaphor of their site and then showing that it's 2 of the top brands that you could get. Your shades, our lenses, perfect summer combo. So picking seasonality and using that seasonality. The audiences that we have engaged with these have responded very well. Even if you notice at the very bottom, Lens Pure's carousel ad, one of the things that we always try to do when we do a carousel ad is each unit should stand individually, but as you look, you find that you can continue that ad and it becomes part of a series. So I think that's really important if you're doing carousel ads, and that's a very specific thing to talk about from an art director's perspective, but you want that language to stand alone, because then Facebook can look at individual panels and see which one was the most engaging, and that data can lead you to better static ads or better videos later on. It also drives people through that ad. So we've seen a lot of success, I think, in creating a mood for this brand that was very much just a, click and ship lenses to you by using seasonality, metaphor, and just trying to lighten up the mood. Are we going to show kettlebell? So again, there is something to be said about great photography. And if you can't get it in our case, if you can't get a shoot done or you can't get the photography, then you have to use stock. In this case, this particular brand had some absolutely gorgeous photos. And by using the photos and doing some pattern interruption with, you see the girl's leg is over, the woman's leg is over the circle. You see that the box goes behind the woman lifting the kettlebells. And by showing these people who are just tearing it up, we got a lot of response. Using tiny cues like that, visual cues, rather than just running the ads, helped break it out of what would normally have been, oh, that's a great looking ad, he's working out, I don't really know why I want to engage with this. We also had a number of good offers, and I cannot speak enough to what an offer can do to your campaign. Having a good offer can absolutely make things soar. But like Chris said, you really have to know your audiences too. I think a bad ad can perform well if you know your audience and you follow the trend, you follow the data. A good ad can die if you don't. But a good ad that follows audience data and trends is that amazing ad that you're looking for. So it is partnership too. It's not, there's no one, we don't have one department in WebMechanix. We have several departments that work like a well-oiled machine. And so by working together with our other partners internally, we do create amazing ads for our clients that work. Not just gorgeous, but it also get the click. I think we ended up selling out their inventory twice, Chris.
Yeah, correct? They couldn't keep enough on the shelves.
Yeah, so that was pretty exciting.
They were like, stop, slow down.
And we already talked about that. And then finally, this is one that's been really interesting, because I'm sure you've heard over years, buy coins, buy gold. It was almost a bit of a joke, I think, because it was beat to death. But there is now a Hard Assets Alliance, is one of our clients, who, when you purchase the gold, they hold on to it for you. So you don't have to worry about where it is. It's secure. You hold the title basically to it. But to get people to do that, we really needed to emphasize, look, you're buying real gold. So and these ads, I don't think even do it as much as our brand new ads, and pulling up that timeless value, modern convenience, real gold made real easy. Just that repeating pattern in the copy has made people react. Worried about inflation? Go for the gold. So we try a lot of different things, but we're seeing very, very good response on these ads because, we put the product in front of them and said, this is a tangible asset. You can buy something. I'm really happy with these ads. I think the client's been really happy with these ads, and I know they've been performing. So really bad ads, we don't have, sorry.
No shortage of those around though.
Yep, no shortage at all.
All right.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, Chris, I'm also interested in dissenting opinions. I always love to hear people who are like, I don't think that's right because I think that's fair. And I also want to hear, how can I? So if you've got questions like that or comments, I'd love to field some of those in the last 5 minutes, if that's all right.
So dissenting opinions and how can I's.
Or not, or other things that you want to know.
Jennifer's got to run. No problem.
I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Jennifer. Come back next week. It's every Wednesday at noon Eastern time.
Because I mean, Chris talked about TikTok, and there's this opinion that we have to do TikTok, and not every client's gonna love it. And sometimes it doesn't work for the brand. Even audiences, we notice that a younger audience tends to respond to that because that's where they are. And a much older audience may be confused by that because they don't, it's like, why is that? Why should I trust that person? Because there's a lot of incredulity that comes with that experience. So I think knowing when to do the trend is really important too. Special offers for B2B or HR SaaS discounts. Chris, I'm going to actually pass that one over to you because I think it's less creative and more strategic.
I probably wouldn't lead with a discount. Free trials can work well, but what I would my initial inkling, so HR is a hot topic right now. There's remote work, there's the talent pool has grown dramatically. There's probably some, well, I mean the barriers like nationally and internationally, like for instance, we used to have 90% of our employees here in Maryland. Now it's more like 50%. We now have employees in 22 different states, right? And so there's probably little threads like that that would be really interesting only to your customer. Like find some topic which your layperson would like gloss over, such as like the regulatory implications of having employees in 22 different states. Like that would put the regular person to sleep, but it would be probably a pretty strong pull for the right person. So you want to find that contrasting thing that's going to put the normal person to sleep, but wake your audience up. And I would, assuming that it's a long selling cycle, I would either go on the front end, I would either just go for like an email address only, or maybe use an audience building strategy where it's just like you're driving to an ungated, say, blog post, which is long and detailed, and you're remarketing to folks that do a certain thing. So if they scroll 50% of the way down the page of like a long article, or if they view a certain number of pages, or if they view, like I would intersperse some key links throughout the article, almost as like honeypots in a way. Like if somebody clicks on this, like, hey, did you know you can start a free trial this month? Like if someone clicks on that, then they would go into a special audience category. But we call that anonymous qualified audiences. And the key to that is they have to qualify to be part of that audience, which means watching 50% of a long form video, or scrolling 50% of the way down a long form page, or clicking on a certain link that you put in just for a honeypot. But I would think about it like if you go straight for the jugular, I mean, on Google search, yeah, buy the high intent keywords and just go straight for the jugular with your main offer. But if you're on LinkedIn or anything social or anything display, you got to kind of warm them up a little bit, qualify them a little bit, and then you win on the retargeting. Cool. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate y'all coming out. Jim's one of our regulars. He's here every week. I think I see a few other regulars in here, but we really appreciate this. We are open to any suggestions, any feedback that you have, and we hope to see you again next week. I'm doing a top trends you can't ignore next week, I think. But we'll be in touch very soon, and we appreciate you and hope to hear from you again.
Thank you so much, everybody.
All right,
and thanks,
guys.
Chris. Who needs a script, right?
Yeah, right. Nice. Scripts are for the birds.